I think that recruiters are getting really scared that AI and other innovation is going to take over our jobs. But I think that this is one of those moments where we have to embrace it and realize the whole recruiting and hiring cycle is a massive lift. There's so many things that recruiters have to do on a regular basis, and we don't have a lot of help doing it, okay? And then we also, like, the candidates are holding us accountable and the hiring managers are holding us accountable. Those are two heavy lifts. And so we have to work on both sides, and we have to make sure expectations are fulfilled. And so the exciting part is technology is here to save the day, and we're here to embrace it. Hi, I'm Brianna Rooney, the Millionaire Recruiter. So I have 15 years experience in tech recruiting in particular. I started when I was in my early 20s, very quickly fell in love with the industry, and then started Techies Recruiting, my own agency. I grew it to about 17 over the 12 years, and then actually had an exit. I sold it to a firm, which is a fintech company. And in the midst of all of that, I really grew to love learning and development. And I really wanted to bring respect to the recruiting industry. And the way that I saw doing that was only through training. So at Techies, we really believed in training. We spent a lot of time doing it, which is, I think, why we were so successful. So I built Thriversity, which focuses all on recruiting and learning development, and how we can be better recruiters, how we can push the envelope, how we can be partners with hiring managers. So that's exciting. And then I also have Talent Perch. Talent Perch is my recruiting company. It's very similar to what Techies was, but we also embed staff. So we do staff augmentation, still in tech recruiting, but we do a lot of different facets of things. And then I have the Millionaire Recruiter YouTube, which started in 2018 while I still had Techies, and it was, again, just to bring awareness and respect to our industry. So that's me. So very, very honestly, I got into recruiting by complete accident, which I think most people did, but I got into it for the money. I stayed for the money, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, because I was looking for a sales job. I was looking for a sales job because I wanted to have my own boutique. I went to fashion school, and so that was like my end goal. Like, I was just gonna do this job, put my head down, and open up a store. And the recruiting actually gives me the chills. The recruiting world just took me by storm. I loved it. I loved, finding that connection. So, which is why I have on my LinkedIn, world's best wing woman, because I feel like I am a natural matchmaker. It's something that really excites me. I like to see the light in people's eyes when you make that connection. So whether it's a love connection, or in this particular case, a love connection can still happen in your career. You love your career, you love your company, you love your managers. And so I felt that was just really like my calling, and I just got it. So I would say, as far as recruiting goes, my superpower is finding people that other people cannot find. So I think very often we think we've exhausted a search. And whenever I hear that, I get really excited, because I'm like, ooh, okay, here we go. Like, let me show you how to unexhaust this search. So I think I bring a really fresh perspective to it, always. My superpower is I'm a creative problem solver. So I really think about, like, it really far out there, like people are like, oh no, we're gonna do it this way. I'm like, let's do it really that way, like all the way to the end of the spectrum. And I think when I do that, I think my negotiation skills kick in, because I'm always trying to find what's that thing, what's that creative solution that makes sense for every single person involved, every company, every client, every candidate, so every employee. Yeah, so Techies Recruiting was born when I was 24. And so as I talk about my early journeys in recruiting, I was the low woman on the totem pole. I went to a firm that specialized in tech recruiting, so I didn't even know any other recruiting existed. I didn't even really know about recruiting, to be honest. And so when they would get there really early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning, and they would start looking at all the job boards. And because I was the low woman on the totem pole, I didn't have a job board. That wasn't like an option for me, but I still had to deliver just like everybody else had, you know? So I went on LinkedIn, and there was no LinkedIn Recruiter back then. There was no seats. People didn't really use LinkedIn, but I knew if engineers are on LinkedIn, then that has to be where we can find them, right? So I was able to somehow teach myself, you know, the ins and outs of LinkedIn and how to source and how to find people. And then there was one job board that was left over, which was actually Dice. And so Dice was or is now known more of a tech job board. But back then they were using like Career Builder and Monster and Hot Jobs. You know, some of them don't even exist now, right? Not in its full form. And so anyways, I went on Dice, and again, I found a lot of fruit. I found a lot of amazing candidates, and I started having a lot of luck and really hitting numbers that none of my other colleagues were hitting. And so then they were like, well, we're going to take Dice from you because again, you're still a low woman on totem pole. So I think in my early years when I started recruiting, I just learned how to be scrappy. I just learned to use whatever I had in order to get my job done. What's a big deal to me is you never let anyone affect your ability to do your job, right? So that's how I learned how to recruit really well. And so flash forward, you know, about a year and a half into my career, there was something that I got really bothered about internally at my job. You know, he didn't like us to share our trainings and our learnings. He's like, it was a very sharky environment. And I was like, there's got to be a better way, right? There has to be a better way that we can still make a lot of money, still make an impact in people's lives, and still do what's ethically right. So I walked out. Literally walked out, shocked my entire company. I had no plans of even starting my own agency. I just walked out. And it was one of those, like, you know, moments where you're really young and you just decide, like, who cares? And my mom cried, and she's like, you were making so good, great money. Oh my God, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. I just love recruiting. Like, I had not a care in the world, right? And so I'm at a Laker game with my stepdad, and he goes, so keep in mind, my stepdad and my dad are both entrepreneurs. Okay, so I just always would have my own company one day. I just didn't know what it was. I thought it was fashion. And so he's like, hey, what does your boss do for you that you can't do for yourself? And I was like, nothing. And he's like, okay, so why don't you start your own firm? And literally that was, I quit on Friday. Our game was the Laker game was on Sunday. And then on Wednesday, I started Techies. And that was it. That was, you know, that was where the magic started. And I just had something to prove. And I never looked back. And it was amazing. It's been an amazing, amazing, amazing journey. Yeah, so when I started the Millionaire Recruiter, it was actually not my idea. It was one of my employees' ideas, and he came to me and said, hey, Brianna, like, you love training, like, that's why we're good, right? So there's other recruiting trainers out there, but the content's not very good and they're making money off of it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, well, that's really sad. And he's like, we need to start a YouTube channel. You need to start a YouTube channel, and you need to start teaching the masses, because this is how our industry gets better. And I was like, no, thank you. And so he kept fighting me. And so very long story short, the Millionaire Recruiter YouTube channel was born. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to feature content that was very raw and very real. There's no editing. There's no me redoing things. There's no scripts. There's no, like, we just look at as far as like content calendar and stuff goes, I just look to see what's in the market. I do film about a month ahead of time because I feel like that still can keep up, right? And I think that all of my content really digs deep on why are people getting in the industry? How can I talk to them and make sure to help them? But then also, how do I help them with their job search? How do I help them in all facets of recruiting? And what excites me about some of my videos is that I even have hiring managers watching my videos. And that was what the intention was. The intention was, I want all recruiting industry, no matter what your job is, to find some value at least of a few of my videos. You know, maybe not every week is geared towards you, but I tried to do internal agency, hiring managers, recruiting coordinators, anyone that touches the recruiting, the hiring cycle. I wanted to make sure I at least sent some love to and teachings to. And, you know, at first when I started doing this, I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher. Like I'm a trainer, but I wasn't trained to do it. You know, I just go by instinct. But I realized that this is my calling and my instinct is right. And I've trained many recruiters from scratch. And so it's been quite a journey, and it's been a really, really, really fun time. Yeah, you know what's really interesting, and you know how we talk about, I think what we see is we see hard skills and we see soft skills, right? And for me, in my opinion, soft skills is the new hard skills. We should have been highlighting soft skills this entire time. And so in order to be a really great recruiter, you have to have some really great soft skills, which is one, it comes from your work ethic. It comes from your work ethic, and it comes from your resiliency, because in recruiting, we talk about a roller coaster. And even if you're not an external working on commission, internal recruiters it's still a roller coaster for them. We are trying to fill roles, and there's a lot of challenges in order to do that, right? So you have to be able to say, okay, this way didn't work, I'm gonna try this way. You know, so it's like constantly moving, constantly pivoting, which means you better like change. And I think first and foremost, you better hug failure. You better look at failure as this is the fastest way to learn, period. You know, because if you can't do that, if you're scared of failure, if you're scared of misstepping, you're gonna miss some really amazing experiences, and you're definitely not gonna thrive in recruiting, because this is what it is. You know, people, you cannot predict people. You can look at the data all you want, and you can see patterns, and that all works. But at the end of the day, people are people. And same on the other side of the hiring. You know, so you know, getting back to more attributes, I would absolutely say that, you know, you choose to have a positive attitude as well. So, you know, I feel like people they gravitate to who they want to work with. And I'm not saying you have to come in with this big, beautiful personality, although that helps, right? But everyone does things their own way. So your communication skills and setting expectations has to be like spot on. And so as you're learning to do that, you're learning to communicate and listen to understand instead of, you know, respond. I think that's another crucial skill. So there's lots of skills recruiters need. So I would say that recruiting is one of the only industries where there is no learning path, right? You don't have to get a certification. You don't have to get a degree. You don't have to really do anything. You just have to pass an interview, right? Which is really crazy, because we're dealing with the most important thing any company deals with, which is hiring and retention. And I think that lots of times we don't really get credit for the retention part, you know? So I built Thriversity in order to help people get into the industry, because, you know, as you can see tons of reports, like recruiting is the fastest way to really make a great income and a great living, right? And so I don't think there's any besides maybe like real estate. I would say if I'm going to compare an industry, real estate and I think recruiting, you know, are probably the closest, although still not the same, right? And so Thriversity is bringing knowledge from the beginning. So just like if you're a professional athlete, what do you have to do first? You have to learn the fundamentals. And with the fundamentals, you got to practice those fundamentals over and over and over again. I mean, I'm a giant Kobe Bryant fan, right? And he used to come into the practice hours at 4 a.m, hours before anyone showed up. But he was one of the best. And that's why he stayed the best, because he kept with the fundamentals. And so that's what we do in Thriversity, is here's the fundamentals, and then this is how we're going to push you. This is how we're going to make you faster. This is how you're actually going to retain the information. And for me, I was never really into school. You know, like I obviously I didn't go to real college. I went to fashion school, right? And by the way, that's college. It was fun, right? But like my parents never pushed me to, I guess, really put my head down and study in school, even growing up. Like we were like into sports and they're like, oh, as long as you get like a B average, we're good. So I never grew up loving school, and I like sitting down and retaining information, listening to an instructor. I'm like, oh, it's hard, right? So in Thriversity, I put all of that in there. Like I put, like, look, most recruiters are kinesthetic learners, which means like we learn all different ways and we learn by doing. And so in all of my courses, I take that into consideration. And I take into consideration that we're also goldfish, like our attention span, like, oh, squirrel, butterfly, it's super fast. And so like I take that into consideration, and I make sure that everything I put in there actually has to do with being a better recruiter, being better at your job. Talent Perch has been a very interesting journey, even though that Talent Perch is very, very similar to Techies, and so like I've been there, done that, it's been great. But Talent Perch, we're embedding our staff, but not only embedding our staff and acting as their own, but we're actually building up their talent acquisition team, like from scratch. So like we've built ATSs, we've built structure, we've built, processes, which is very interesting. So, and we've built them with the mind that we're going to have sustainable growth. Okay, so that's what's important. So I would say if I was going to highlight the biggest win, it would probably be the one that we had with Cognito, which is a medical device company trying to cure Alzheimer's. So it's a mega mission, right? It's incredible. But they needed a chief medical officer. I mean, they needed lots of things, right? But like they needed all this stuff that I actually didn't have experience with, and my team didn't have experience with. My team's very versatile. They're not just tech, but I'm just tech. And so I was trying to like bring this brain trust together and be like, how do we fill these medical device, jobs when our network isn't very strong in it? And so then I started, sitting back and I looked at the job description, even though it was a little intimidating and I didn't know a lot of, the lingo in there. I was like, at the end of the day, that's still just a word. That's a key word, right? So at the end of the day, a good recruiter is a good recruiter, and we can dissect any job as long as we can have a conversation with the hiring manager and ask those really smart questions. And so what we were able to do is not only just conquer we were with them for a year, so we had a lot of success there. But the chief medical officer one stands out to me because the company was just like, look, Bran, I know you and your team do a great job, but this one's out of your scope. This is a heavy hitter. Like the amount of people that can fit in this is a van, like there's like these people don't exist. And I said, just give us a moment, okay? And so what I did was I called Covey. So getcovey.com is one of my most favorite tools, and they have a Scout, which is a sourcing bot that actually uses your recruiter's brain. So it's not just like a Boolean search that you're putting in LinkedIn and you go tell it to find it. It's actually doing the job description, doing the hiring manager notes, talking to one of their customer support people, and putting this into a mega search, okay? And so the bot went to work. It was able to find people that we weren't even able to find, and as fast. We get on the phone with this one amazing candidate, and it was a win. And so save that money. As far as recruiting fees go, we saved that company like over $100,000 just by bringing in some AI resources. So obviously we handled the candidate experience, we handled the close and all those great things, and we also told the bot what to look for, and it was able to, find it over our scope. So it was a really, really, really cool win, cool experience. But the whole year that we were with them, we were kind of out of our comfort zone, and we just hit the ground running. And again, it goes back to the fundamentals. If you are a fundamentally strong recruiter, you can tackle anything. So innovation and AI, it is completely taking over recruiting. I mean, it's taking over our universe in general, but like recruiting for sure. And so I think that recruiters are getting really scared that AI and other innovation is going to take over our jobs. But I think that this is one of those moments where we have to embrace it and realize the whole recruiting and hiring cycle is a massive lift. There's so many things that recruiters have to do on a regular basis, and we don't have a lot of help doing it, okay? And then we also, like, the candidates are holding us accountable and the hiring managers are holding us accountable. Those are two heavy lifts. And so we have to work on both sides, and we have to make sure expectations are fulfilled. And so the exciting part is technology is here to save the day, and we're here to embrace it. So yeah, I would say the newest stuff that we're using is again through Covey, and that's in inbound resume bot. So just like I said that there's a sourcing bot that will help you, right? But there's also now an inbound bot. So like, let's say the trend right now, I mean, I'm seeing 600 to 1,000 resumes per job opening on LinkedIn, and it's like, how in God's name is this sustainable for a recruiting team that, by the way, their job shouldn't be reviewing resumes, right? It should be hunting and candidate experience and offers and meeting with the hiring managers, and then all of the admin tasks, right? Keeping track, we're scheduling, we're making sure we're doing the roundtables after the interviews. I mean, there's so much human interaction that is needed in this process that if we can put a bot on reviewing resumes, if we can do a bot on some sourcing inspirations, if we can put sequencing tools in place to make sure, we're hitting the amount of touches we need to hit, because remember, it's a noisy, crowded world, and we have to do more than one touch. And to keep track of that on a manual basis is ridiculous. You can go on Crunchbase and you can download a giant Excel spreadsheet of all your biz dev, companies, or even hit list companies to source from. There's so much. God, I feel like I can go on and on about all the different AI technology and automation we can do, because again, it's like what you should do. My advice for this is list all of the tasks that you do. Now see, hey, what can I actually put tech on? And what can do it really, really well, and no one's gonna miss it. No one's gonna miss me doing this job, And I dare yourself to do that, because you're only gonna be more efficient, you're only gonna be happier, your work-life balance will be strong. And then when you're fully in it and not overworked, you'll be able to be that creative problem solver and see things that other recruiters don't see, AI is an amazing piece of technology. The problem, I'm going to give you a positive and a negative. The problem with AI is that I think people think that it's supposed to think for them. It's not supposed to think for you. You're supposed to put in your thoughts and then give it pizzazz, or give you inspiration. AI should inspire you, right? So it's not supposed to replace you. And I think that that's the issue that we're having. And then also, technology is technology, and it's going to be buggy. Just even think about like how many times does your Alexa, do something wrong, like that stuff happens. And so I think we also have to be really patient with technology to know, like, yes, it's getting there, but it's not to our speed. And that's actually probably a good thing for right now, right? Now, on the plus side of AI, I think that when you are using it for the good, for your outreach. So like now, you can have a beautiful little ChatGPT bot on someone's LinkedIn profile, and it can scan and kind of inspire you as to what that message would look like, because personalization is the key. That's what people want. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and I was like, hey, how did you get a job? Because executive jobs right now are really, really noisy and really crowded. And he says that he read this book that it's Never Search Alone. That's what it's called. Never Search Alone. And I thought it was a really interesting concept. And essentially what it means is network. You network, you catch up, you have conversations. And I think that at recruiting's core, that's what it is. So now we have to use AI in order for us to network and make connections faster. Recruiting trends change all the time. It's crazy. I will say, Recruit CRM does one of the most amazing jobs, and I share your newsletter all the time, no joke. Your content is solid. So other ones is like Morning Brew. I think Morning Brew, it's the tech brew or the HR brew, solid. So I read a lot. So I read trends and I look at LinkedIn and I spend the time knowing what's going on in my recruiting world, what's going on in tech, and then what's going on just with the world in general. But I will tell you, with the world in general news, I don't spend much time. I try to stay in my two categories here, which is, recruiting and tech. But yeah, I would recommend anyone sign up for whatever newsletters gives you inspiration. It's crucial. Same with Crunchbase. I think Crunchbase has a good one. Robinhood has a good one. And it's like that's how you understand what's the real, what are rumors, and then you find out for yourself. But like, if you have to listen to podcasts, you have to listen to, I think, other leaders also in the space, because that's how you know what trends are. And I think that there's also a levels.fyi, which is and Team Blind, which is also a really great website that shows you, again, the real of salary transparency. How happy are people at these particular jobs? What levels are people at? So stuff like that, I go on pretty much a regular basis just to see what's going on. Salary changes all the time. I have this staff level engineer come to me, and I can tell you that he's making way over market, and he had no idea. So it's like, it's a constant course correction of the market, and what are we willing to do, and so it's also, it's the recruiter's job to stay up to date, and the only way to do that is by reading and listening. Yeah, so I think with everything I've done, I've been more of a trailblazer. It's like I'm like, I get there first, and so I think the challenge is, that's the challenge. It's like, you want to pave a way for people, but sometimes you don't know what your way is. So how do you pave it for them if you don't know yet, right? So I think for me, I have my risk tolerance is very, very high, maybe too high. And so sometimes that's not great for people because they don't operate like that, So I think that would be a challenge for sure. But with the Forbes.jobs platform, essentially what that is like, it's trying to bring, really high performing recruiters or agency owners, they can be one and the same, or trying to bring them together as a unit. So just like my YouTube channel, I'm trying to bring the industry together as a unit because we're all stronger together. And so that's the premise of Forbes. But they're just getting going. It just started this year. So I think we'll see what happens in the next years to come. But I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a lot of high earning, high achieving, great recruiters in all different industries together in a room. I think that's the cool part. And we do meet really often, and we do focus also on learning and development, pushing the envelope. And I think that's really key. So that's essentially what that community is. And it's been really great. And it's not really something for me. I mean, I think everything I do, there's a balance to it, but it's not a company of mine. I'm just happen to be, a member of their community. So marketing is an interesting beast. I would say that I actually didn't spend one marketing dollar until about 2 years ago. So I had already sold techies, no marketing happened, nothing like that. We didn't share content on LinkedIn. Now I would say the last 2 years have been drastically different. Everyone's coming to play. Everyone wants market share. Everyone wants to be heard, be seen. And so, gosh, I would say that it's pretty obvious when I see on LinkedIn people that maybe have no following or have empty questions. People are trying to do polls, but it's like, are you trying to do a poll to do a poll? Or are you trying to what are we trying to do? And I think that people just assume that it has to be content, that content for sure has to be marketing. But you know what? It can be you just showing up in a webinar. That's marketing. That's marketing. That's showing your voice. Everybody wants to do something different. Like people are always like, oh, Brianna, you know, you do video, you do all this video and you don't care. I'm like, yeah, but I've been doing videos since 2018 and I don't ever watch my stuff. So that's how I survive it, you know? So you guys do you. I think everyone compares themselves to each other, and in the marketing world and content and all that stuff, that's not something that works. You know, if it takes you 3 hours to do one article, then guess what? Stop doing articles. You know, or hey, maybe you start talking to what I enjoy and what I recommend is talk to your phone. Put your phone up, start talking. And then you know what, at the very least, you can use your voice or something like that. But God, there's been some zany marketing stuff. The one that shocks me the most that is popular are these zany, I guess it would be like memes, recruiting memes. This one person, that's all they do is recruiting memes. And there's this giant following. And I mean, I applaud the guy that it works, but I'm like, really? What? There's no substance. There's literally no substance. But you know what? I don't have to get it. You know, people are liking it and they enjoy it. And I mean, think about, do you remember Ceiling Cat? Ceiling Cat was hilarious. Ceiling Cat made how many millions of dollars? Like, bravo, whoever came up with Ceiling Cat, you know? But that's essentially a marketing thing. I love talking about emotional intelligence. It's obvious, it's something that you have to practice on a regular basis. It's not just you take these giant classes and it's done. I love emotional intelligence because it's constantly pushing yourself to be better. So like if you can be better 1% every single day and 365 days later and a year later, like how awesome are you, you know? And so I think what's great too is that when you talk about emotional intelligence, you talk about triggers. So in life, we're triggered by all sorts of things. And so a great example of this, I was always triggered by, I'm a morning person. I'm one of those really annoying morning people. I work out at 5 o'clock in the morning. Even when I had sleepovers as a kid, I was like that annoying kid that was like, hey, what are we doing at 6 in the morning? You know? And so I would walk in the office and there would always be one of my employees there that was there a little bit earlier than me. And I'd be like, hey, how are you? Good morning. And this particular person wasn't a morning person. Like they're the exact opposite of morning person. And they just kind of like looked at me like death, you know, that they were like, why are you talking to me right now? And it would trigger me. I would seethe. I would be like, why is this person so rude in the morning? Why are they, you know, like, and I'm the boss, like, you know, like I would just totally trigger. I would go in my office and I would just like, go down this rabbit hole of misery for like 5 minutes. Why? How was that productive? You know, so I realized going through training, I realized, oh wait, that's a trigger. So I need to realize, how do I stop that trigger? So how do I talk to myself about it? And I had to flip the switch. And I'd be like, you know what, Brianna, you're a morning person. This person is not. You coming in hot might trigger her. You know, so like I had to realize like we are all different. And so being different shouldn't trigger me. It should inspire me. It should excite me. It should just know like, hey, like I'm not going to get this good morning that I want, you know, for some crazy reason. So I realized that with emotional intelligence, you realize how you can have your A game as much as possible. But here's the thing, your A game cannot be, you know, 20 hours a day, or we're not probably up 20 hours a day, but you know, it can't be 10 hours a day, right? There's no way. And there's tons of studies that show that you're probably on full capacity 4 hours a day. Okay, so if that's the case, then I'm going to make sure that I know, do I operate in the morning or do I operate in the afternoon? Naturally, I operate in the morning. So everything I do that's really mega, that takes a lot of brain power, that takes my creativity, I'm going to do in the morning. And anything that I can really coast with, I'm going to do it in the afternoon, you know? And so I think that emotional intelligence plays into that, and it plays into how can you be super, super, super efficient. And it also plays into how can I be this mega communicator? And because again, with the triggers, how can I realize that this person is having a moment? How can I talk to this person and get through to them? How can I talk to my client that is hitting their head against the wall because I can't hire? Okay, let's have those moments, and also I can see it now. And I think that the help of emotional intelligence helps you see things really clearly. My coach once said to me, watch from the balcony. That's when you know you're doing a great job, is when you're watching from the balcony and you can see everything happening. It feels very, very clear. And now you can communicate and operate the way that you need to be because you're clear minded. So the recruiting industry, although wild, and yes, we say it's a roller coaster all the time, I would say that even in its dips, even in its lows, even when it's hard, okay, even when you see layoffs and all the recruiters are gone, or business development is hard, it's an amazing industry. It will give back to you if you give to it. So I would always suggest paying it forward, paying attention, but don't expect results overnight. Recruiting is a long game. So if you're here for the long game, buckle in, get ready, and enjoy.